did note the offsite meetings, but Christie will talk about that more with hers. It basically goes with whatever your schedule is. This will simply reflect that. And so the date that I moved up was the Cuyahoga Valley Area Plan having a public hearing in June, as opposed to waiting until July. So that was one change, because we didn't have a workshop in June, but you still got to check that all out. And so the unallocated workshops, if you will, are in July and in October. And a possibility, we were talking about doing some kind of summit around revenue generation and looking at traffic impact fees, assessment fees, parcel taxes. Everybody's talking about a lot of different things, and the thought was bring everyone together so that they can talk about it all together. So that we were talking about possibly for July, and then the thought is that October might present an opportunity for checking in on economic development things. It would be about the time we'd have the SEDS plans ready to be approved to move on. So again, this is just a rough outline. It's the board's action plan. So this just gives you a sense of what the possibilities are, and then we would look for direction from you on that.
Okay, I think Kevin had a comment first, and then John.
Yes, I think it is important, and I'm glad it says in bold print here draft, because it is the board's action plan. We have 2 new board members, and we want to make sure that we incorporate their ideas and visions, and I think it's fine as a start. One example is the trip on the legislative program, if one should occur, to Washington, D.C. I discussed it with our legislative advocate, and he said that was one option. There are other options for dates that's fairly early in the year. The only option that does not exist is the week of President's Week, because Congress is not in session and they're not there. So we can still look to the end of the month. There's always that question of trying to balance it with NACO. There are cost efficiencies in doing that, but it's not the best time to speak to the elected representative. So piggybacking on that, probably isn't possible unless one were to look at possibly the first week of March, which was just prior to the NACO conference. So that's just one example, but I think it's very important that we think of this as a draft, and the board may want to make minor or major changes to the establishment of priorities, the setting of the schedule, and so forth.
I just want to confirm, definitely it's draft and realized nothing, and that was true this last year too. It was not finalized until January, but any direction you want to give, if something totally doesn't work, then what we do back in January could be maybe closer to your liking.
John, did you have a comment?
Yeah, the only action I'm going to commit to right now is the first visit January 6th meeting. What happens beyond that,
Not asking for action.
yeah, because this is totally the discretion of the board.
Okay, well that basically takes us through the transition planning for 2009, and there's some documents that Chris wants to share, and then you get to take it all under advisement and see where you want to go with it.
Mr. Hudson.
Mr. Chair, just one suggestion. After having just gone through 4 days of ICS 300-400, there was a very strong suggestion made that elected boards, elected officials take the ICS 402 class, which is tailored to elected officials. It's about 69 to 90 minutes long, and probably better to plan to take it than to have a 0-dark-30 briefing on it in the middle of disaster. But I think it's been some time since the board had it. Probably not the best presenter back then. There are a lot better presenters out there, and because everything is migrating towards the national NIMS model, it would be a good idea if we brought that back before you.
I think that's a great suggestion for the new board. Other than David and maybe Johnny, having gone through some previous disasters and emergency situations, just the basic knowledge of the concept of NIMS or ICS, I think would go a long way in the board members recognizing how the departments play with each other during times of emergency. And so, being a short class, I think it'd be a big advantage, it really would. Supervisor?
I think maybe this is about the most opportunity to bring this issue up. We have a lot of money we spend every year on emergency services and everything. And here just recently, we had a car that teaching people off the street here, and we couldn't even keep the power on this building. Here we got a generator back here, but nobody knew what if the generator was wired to run this building. I mean, basic things that should be done. And we had emergency service here and spending money and doing the classes. And something as basic as that, we couldn't even keep the functions of this building going, which are imperative to the operation of the county. And somebody hits a power pole, and we're out of business here. I mean, shouldn't that come first before trainings and everything? I mean, that's pretty basic to have our alternate power source up and running.
Actually,
we do that.
Actually, in the case of the training, much of this training is mandated if we want to continue to apply for Homeland Security grants that can pay for things like generators.
That's my point. We had everything set up, but it wasn't hooked up right. It still isn't, to my knowledge. It still isn't. If somebody did a power pole right now, we'd be out of business.
Only half of our office is only half of the Sheriff's Administration office, and only half of the patrol office is powered by generator. We keep jail though.
But how many generators you got set up there in the yard?
Yeah, we can't, the majority of those cannot be used because they're seized assets, and they have to go through the asset
But
forfeiture.
my point is, shouldn't that be the basics of emergency services to get this main building here where all the services are basically transmitted from?
Yeah, and I think that's something that should be brought back to the county's GAG 5 for a funding decision. The ability to run up and maintain emergency operations and provide essential services is a central tenet of government's responsibility in a disaster. And because of the technology we have right now, we've actually got the ability to do a virtual EOC, where people don't have to leave the resources of their offices in order to convene and make decisions about allocation of the limited resources we do have. But you've got to have power, you've got to have communications.
Good points.
Should that be directed to the emergency service director to get our basic supply issue here?
Yeah, we don't even have, I met with the airport managers throughout the county recently, a new leadership group coming together, and there's not an airport in this county that has emergency generators. We can't keep the lights on at night in the event of a power failure. So we're working on not only the generators, but you also have to have a transfer switch, and that's a project we're actively working on.
Should we start with this building then? Because there's
Yeah.
part of it.
And to that, Supervisor Pinchas, one thing that came out of this class, and I think it echoes what all of you said earlier on, the instructors were both from out of the area. One's a former fire chief from Mariposa County, and the other one is a patrol officer from Denver, and they both teach for FEMA. And during the course, they asked multiple questions about, well, you probably run into this problem. No. Probably run into this communication issue. No. Well, you probably have instances where your departments can't talk to each other. No, we can talk to each other just fine. Wait a second, what are you telling me here? Well, that we've been pretty dependent on each other for a very long time, so we've built systems and strategies and relationships that allow us to function in even the worst of times, and sometimes with very little at our disposal. And they were absolutely amazed and said in all the places that they teach, they felt like Mendocino County was probably farther ahead than most places they go, including metropolitan areas. I think that speaks to everyone who is involved in this. Your board, your predecessors, the folks who are in the decision-making positions, and the folks who are the boots on the ground out there that we're creating and maintaining